Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Han Solo. I'm Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Bond.
James Bond.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Say hello to my little friend.
Here's Johnny.
And here we go.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to the 24th installment of Snack and Chat. Hope all of you guys are having a wonderful Friday in this quarantine madness. And as you can see, we have a jam-packed Friday. We got a jam-packed Friday, a whole bunch of movie news to talk about. I mean, we're going to talk about Ben Affleck coming back to play a little character. We got a new image and a title that came out for Matt Reeves' The Batman. The first Tenet reviews came out. I don't have that listed there because they came out after I made that, so we're definitely going to talk about that first. But before we get to the Tenet reviews, I gotta tell you guys what my snack of the day is today. And today, my snack of the day is... Oh, almost dropped him, and that would have been a disaster. But I didn't. That is Mike and Ike's. Oh, upside down. There you go. Mike and Ike's Original Fruits. That's right. I've had these on once on this show before, I believe. And I don't usually get like Mike and Ike's and all the chewy candies because, like I said before, it's hard to chew and talk at the same time. But now that I'm not doing these live anymore, it's a little bit easier. Alright, so let's get into this box here. And before I grab one, make sure and vote on that poll there on which one you think, on which Mike and Ike you think I'm going to get. I believe we got cherry, lemon, strawberry, lime, and orange. So make sure you pause the video and vote up there. So with that said, can I get a drum roll, please? Alright, let's see what we got. Oh, what's this? Let's see. Oh, we got a strawberry, ladies and gentlemen. We got a strawberry. Look at that sucker. Oh yeah. So for the people that voted strawberry, congratulations. You get absolutely nothing. Alright, so now with all that done, let's hop into the movie news with our very first topic, which again I don't have listed up here, but it certainly is a very big topic, and that is the very first reviews, or the first reviews for Christopher Nolan's Tenet. I know, it seems like we've been talking about this movie for decades and decades, and finally, the first reviews have come out for this movie, and they're pretty good. I mean, I believe the last time I checked, the tomato scale, the Rotten Tomato scale, had this movie at 88%. I mean, so that's pretty good. I mean, if my movie had 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, I'd be popping bottles. We'd be celebrating all day, all night. So that's a pretty good percentage for my man, Christopher Nolan. And I haven't read any of the reviews, so this will be my first time reading some of these. And let's start off with the first one from Linda Marek from the Jewish Chronicle. And she says, "It's one of his most daring sci-fi narratives yet, and the results are truly phenomenal." Alright, I dig that. I dig that, Linda. I dig it. Next up, we got James Motram from the South China Morning Post. And he says, "Tenet exceeds our already sky-high expectations. It is undeniably the most audacious film of his career," which is saying something. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right, so next up we have Clarice Lochry. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Probably did, but from The Independent, and she says, "Tenet is as intricately and exquisitely designed as Nolan's earlier work. It boasts some of the most spectacular, memorable set pieces of his career." I mean, this is some high praise, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we got Matt Purslow from IGN, and he says, "Tenet is not Christopher Nolan's masterpiece, but it is another thrilling entry into his canon." So, while yes, it's a good reaction, I wouldn't say it's as high as kind of Linda's reaction over here, or James's reaction, or maybe even Clarice's reaction, but obviously good reaction so far. Now next we have Casey Chung from Casey's Movie Mania, And he says, Tenet is the first time I felt he gets too carried away from his own concept. Now, this one's probably the most negative reaction out of them all. As he's probably more in the middle. All right, now I'm going to read a couple more here, so probably like 2 or 3. So the next one comes from Andy Lee from Daily Star, and they say, if Nolan's Inception, excuse me, baked your noodle, prepare for a whole new level of bewilderment. Whoa. That is some praise there, Andy. That is some praise. And then we have Adam Woodward from Little White Lies, and he said, the fun with Tenet lies not in trying to decipher the whats or the whys, but in simply admiring the how. Wow. Okay, Adam. All right, Adam, I see you. All right, so now the last one we're going to read here is from Ian Sandwell from Digital Spy, and he says, Tenet frequently delivers mind-blowing moments that are unlike anything you've seen or even thought about before. So overall, positive stuff coming out of Tenet. I mean, there's a couple of people that were in the middle there. Some said that the movie was more bewildering than Inception, which is definitely interesting. But I'm excited to see it, as I'm sure you guys are. But obviously, we still have to wait to see it because it's not out yet. And in some places, movie theaters aren't even open. But still have to wait to see it. But I'm pumped to watch Tenet, as I'm sure most of you guys are. Alright, so now let's move on to the next topic. And that is Pinocchio. That's right, folks. Pinocchio. Not Disney's Pinocchio, but Guillermo del Toro's upcoming Pinocchio movie that he's doing with Netflix. And it recently came out that the upcoming stop-motion adaptation from Guillermo del Toro that's based off of the classic tale of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi has gotten some new and important cast members, one of them being newcomer Gregory Mann, who will play none other than Pinocchio. You also got Ewan McGregor, who has also been cast to voice Jiminy Cricket, and Mr. Filch himself, David Bradley, as Geppetto. The cast also includes Tilda Swinton, the legend himself, Christoph Waltz, Kate Blanchett, Finn Wolfhard, John Turturro, Ron Perlman, Tim Blake Nelson, and Bern Gorman. Now this is one heck of a cast, and it's also an interesting casting job because never would I have thought that Mr. Filch would ever play the character of Geppetto. Now, I'm not very familiar with the Pinocchio story that this movie is going to be based off of, and maybe if I did know it, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense to cast in Mr. Filch as Geppetto. I mean, come on. Now, yes, they're not going to show his face, but still, I mean, obviously he's providing his voice, but it's going to be very interesting to see him as Geppetto. I mean, just putting Mr. Filch as Geppetto compared to the Disney's version of Geppetto, that's just total opposite right there, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what he does with Geppetto. And I'm also pretty intrigued to see how Ewan McGregor does as Jiminy Cricket, and obviously I'm not very familiar with Gregory Mann. As I said, he is a newcomer who's going to voice Pinocchio, but already you can kind of see that this Guillermo del Toro version of Pinocchio is going to be very different from the Disney's version of Pinocchio, just from some of the casting, some of the images that came out, obviously it being stop motion. And again, while I'm not very familiar with the Pinocchio story that this movie is going to be based off of, I do believe that that version of Pinocchio is a little bit darker than the Disney's Pinocchio movie. And we'll just have to be on the lookout to see what happens next for Guillermo del Toro's and Netflix's Pinocchio. So definitely leave a comment down below also of what you think of the images that came out for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I thought they looked pretty interesting, and then so the castings as well, because this is definitely a stacked cast. Now with that said, let's move on to the next topic, and that is movie theaters in New York City. That's right, folks. Now I usually wouldn't talk about the movie theaters in New York, but this story had me quite interested, where I was like, you know what, let's talk about this and snack and chat, you know what I mean? So the governor in New York, Governor Andre Cuomo, which is a name you've probably heard of ever since this whole COVID thing started, but Governor Cuomo came out and he was talking about the closures of movie theaters, and he said, quote, "I am sure there is a whole group of people who would say, I cannot live without going to the movies. But on a relative risk scale, a movie theater is less essential and poses a higher risk. It is one ventilation system. You are seated there for a long period of time, says Cuomo. Even if you are at 50% capacity with 1 or 2 seats between the two of you, this is a risk situation, and movie theaters are not that high on the list of essentials. Who has the Bible of essentials? Nobody. You can't go to the Bible to figure it out, but we are saying, yes, gyms for more New Yorkers are more essential than movie theaters. Now, I understand if you want to keep movie theaters closed in your theaters. I totally understand that. You know, especially with being in the middle of a pandemic, movie theaters could be highly contagious, like Cuomo said. So I get it. I understand if you want to keep movie theaters closed. And yes, as much as I kind of hate to say it, movie theaters are not an essential thing we need to have open right now. However, to say that a movie theater is not essential to open, which again I understand, but then to greenlight bowling alleys and malls and gyms and museums and aquariums and all that to open, that to me just doesn't make sense. I mean, sure, gyms to some people may be more essential to them than movie theaters, but I'm sure there's also people out there that think movie theaters are more essential than gyms. Again, what you think is kind of essential to open is all subjective, but to me, I just kind of find it weird that you say movie theaters aren't essential to open in your city, and then to have bowling alleys, malls and gyms and all that open, because those are also places that could be high risk. I mean, you have gyms where people sweat and they breathe hard and all that, and then you have malls and aquariums and museums and bowling alleys, which are all indoors, and you know, people like to touch things. And to me, I just don't see how all those places are more essential than movie theaters. I mean, you can make a pretty good argument for gyms, but gyms are also high risk, as I just said, for the reasons I just said. But I mean, again, it's all subjective. To me, I don't see how malls and bowling alleys and museums and aquariums and all that are more essential to movie theaters. To me, in my opinion. Again, it's all subjective, but definitely leave a comment down below of what you think of Governor Cuomo's comments. So with that said, let's move on to the next topic, which is Spider-Woman. That's right, folks, Spider-Woman. And the other day, there were talks that Sony and Booksmart director Olivia Wilde are working on closing a deal for Olivia Wilde to take on her first big project in Spider-Woman for Sony. Now, this was definitely some unexpected news to come out. I mean, we not as unexpected as another news topic we'll talk about a little bit later. So this was definitely some unexpected news. I mean, I wouldn't say it's as unexpected as another news topic we'll talk about a little bit later. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before on this channel, but I'm not the biggest Booksmart fan in the world. I thought it was a pretty solid comedy, and Olivia Wilde did a good job with it, and I just don't love it as much as other people do. It is pretty smart for Olivia Wilde to kind of like work her way up. I mean, she started like low budget with a Booksmart, you know, does another sort of low budget with her upcoming movie, and then boom, then she goes to a Spider-Woman, you know. And I don't know if this movie is going to connect to the Sonyverse or anything. I'm pretty sure Sony hasn't really commented on that, but we'll just have to wait and see with what happens with this Spider-Woman movie, and leave a comment down below of what you think of Olivia Wilde directing a Spider-Woman movie. So with that said, let's move on to the next topic, which is DC fandom, and I'm sure that's probably something you've heard a lot of lately in the last couple weeks or a month or so. So DC fandom, where a virtual DC panels will occur over 2 days, one on August 22nd and one on September 15th, because DC extended the event from 1 day to 2 days, and I'm sure over those 2 days DC is going to reveal a bunch of awesome stuff, whether it's their movies or television shows or whatever they're going to talk about. So I thought it would be pretty fun to kind of give a little bit of my predictions on what I think will happen over those 2 days in DC fandom. Is it Fandome or Fandom? I'm pretty sure it's Fandome. But it's kind of funny because I didn't even know what this DC fandom thing even was a month ago, or a month or so ago, because I was like, what is this DC thing everybody's talking about? And then those last 2 weeks, that's all you've been hearing about, and already there's been some awesome announcements. before this thing has even started. But like I said, I thought it would be pretty fun if I gave my predictions on what I think is going to occur over these 2 days of DC fandom. Now, my first prediction, this kind of connects with a later topic that we'll talk about, and that is Ben Affleck. Obviously, I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But with the announcement of Ben Affleck coming back as Batman, I kind of think Ben Affleck will show up in one of the panels, probably the Flashpoint one, and I think it would be absolutely awesome if Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton showed up at the Flashpoint panel. I'm crossing my fingers for that to happen, but that's one of my predictions. Another one of my predictions that I'm pretty confident in saying that we will get some of Matt Reeves' The Batman footage. I don't know, maybe like a little teaser trailer like they did with Batman vs. Superman at Comic-Con, how they showed that little thing with like people talking over it and all that. Then it was already announced that we're going to get a Wonder Woman 1984 trailer tomorrow, probably during the panel. And then you also have the Suicide Squad, and I think we'll also get some footage from the Suicide Squad since, you know, they've already wrapped shooting and they're already in the post-production process. So I do feel like we'll get some footage from the Suicide Squad again, maybe another little teaser trailer. And then you also have your Black Adams and your Shazams and your Aquamans, which again haven't started production at all. But I think they probably talk a little bit about the story, hint at maybe some big things that might happen. I hear that Aquaman 2 might have a little bit more of a horror element in it, so I don't really see, obviously we're not going to get any footage out of those, but I do think we'll probably get some more story details from those panels. So that's kind of what I'm expecting from DC fandom, whatever you want to call it. But definitely leave a comment down below in the comment section of what you think is going to happen at DC fandom. So with that said, let's move on to the next topic, and that is the Batman, which a movie I already mentioned in our previous topic. But Matt Reeves posted the new logo and some promo artwork for the Batman, and it's pretty cool. It didn't necessarily have me jumping up and down as, let's say, our next topic that we're going to talk about, but I dig it overall. I think the costume looks pretty nice in the artwork, and I like the title as well with a little bat logo in the middle of it. But it is exciting to see some promotional material from this movie. Again, the Batman releases in October of next year, so we're still a long ways away from the Batman. But I think even though I would have preferred to have Batman come out in June, since, you know, it's kind of closer to my birthday, but I think Batman could fit pretty well in October. And I think it's actually the first Batman movie to ever come out in October, because I know the Nolan Batman movies didn't come out in October. I'm not pretty sure about the 90s Batman movies, but I'm kind of positive that this is the first Batman film to come out in October. And again, I think Batman could do pretty well in October. But again, we're still a long ways away from the movie, but I'm certainly hyped for it, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are. So with that said, let's continue on this Batman trend with our next and final topic, and that is Affleck. That's right. Ben Affleck, ladies and gentlemen, is back as the Caped Crusader Batman. That's right. Ben Affleck is back to play as Batman in the upcoming Andy Muschietti movie Flashpoint, obviously starring Ezra Miller, who plays the Flash. And then obviously we already heard all the stuff of Michael Keaton appearing in the movie as Batman as well. Now, this was definitely, out of all the topics that we've talked about today, easily the most surprising thing, the most surprising news topic to come out this week. I mean, I was talking to Graham, who you guys all know, and I was like, I swear, this was like moments before this came out. I swear, this is true story. And I was like, could you imagine at DC fandom if they announced that Ben Affleck is coming back as Batman, is going to probably play like a mentor role to Robert Pattinson? Now, obviously that isn't the case here, but I was like, just imagine that. And then literally moments later, this announcement came out, and I was like, what? Not only that, but there was like a little survey that I saw of where it said, what's the thing that you don't think is going to happen at DC fandom? And it was like, and it listed its options, and one of them was being Ben Affleck coming back as Batman, and I chose that option because I was like, I don't see Ben Affleck coming back as Batman. And then, again, like I said, moments later, the announcement came out. I mean, this was just absolutely shocking. And then I started thinking, I was like, oh my goodness, we might see Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman possibly in the same scene. I posted something where I said, if I see Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman in the same scene, I might just cry. No, I probably shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said it might just cry. I probably will cry. However, as exciting as this news is, there could also be a bit of confusion with this, especially with the general audience. I mean, again, I was telling you guys how I was talking to Graham, who you guys all know, a little bit about this, and we were kind of talking about how this could possibly be confusing for the general audience because they're like, well, there's a Robert Pattinson Batman, but then there's the Michael Keaton Batman, now all of a sudden the Ben Affleck Batman's coming back. This all just doesn't make any sense. Now, this could be confusing for the general audience, but if DC knows how to explain all of this well in Flashpoint, where both Batmans are expected to come out, as the announcement said, if DC could explain it well, then obviously it won't be as confusing. It just all depends on how this whole thing is explained. I don't know very much about the Flashpoint story, but again, I think the whole confusion thing, it all just depends on how DC explains all of this. And then we were also talking about kind of how, while yes, we, us fans and all that, are all excited for Ben Affleck coming back as Batman, but there was a good solid amount of people that weren't a big fan of Affleck's Batman. But me personally, I mean, I might be totally wrong here, but I kind of think people weren't, it's not that they weren't a fan of Affleck's Batman, it's just that we're coming right off of probably the best comic book trilogy, or one of the best trilogies of all time, in the Christopher Nolan Batman, which was played by Christian Bale. I think the main reason there was some dislike over Affleck's Batman is because, you know, it wasn't Bale's Batman, you know what I mean? It wasn't the Christopher Nolan stuff. It was a change. And I mean, I was kind of one of those people that was like a little bit hesitant about seeing a new Batman because, again, we're coming off of Christopher Nolan's Batman, and overall I ended up liking, at least today, I ended up liking Ben Affleck's Batman, and it's awesome hearing that he's back as Batman because this is definitely unexpected news. The fact that we're going to see, or that we might see, Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman in the same scene, I mean, even just the same movie, it's exciting. It's absolutely exciting. Now, as far as how long do I think Ben Affleck's going to be in the movie, I don't really know. I don't really think it's going to be a huge part, kind of like Michael Keaton. I mean, who knows? Maybe tomorrow we'll find out. Ben Affleck has signed on to do more DC movies, but I don't know. It's exciting to hear that Affleck is back as Batman. Not only that, but he's in the same movie as Michael Keaton's Batman, who's going to return. That's all pretty fun stuff, and definitely leave a comment in the comment section down below of what you think of Affleck coming back as Batman. So with that said, thank you for joining me on this installment of Snack and Chat. I hope all of you had a blast watching, and again, leave a comment down in the comment section below of what you think of all the topics I ran down to do today on this very installment. And I should probably end this pretty soon because, man, is it hot in here. And don't forget to like and subscribe because that is very important. Follow me on Instagram at @thekidcritic. I do post some fun stuff here and there. I post some edit videos on my Instagram account. Also follow me at Letterboxd at KidCritic. And with that said, look out for the next video or review. And peace.